Hello and welcome. I'm Pravin Shekar, and along with me is Dorai Thodla, two crazy
Hi.
men who are going to have a whole lot of conversations around technology, tools, and marketing. So, Dorai,
Yeah.
my first question to you is you work with a lot of startups, I work with a lot of startups, and the standard problem is either I'm not aware of the marketing tools and technologies that are available that will help me in marketing, or if I do know, I would rather use the free version than I don't think I can either afford or I don't want to pay for the monthly part. So, my first salvo to you is if I have to do something free or at a very frugal way in terms of researching or trying to find out, how do I go ahead and do that? What technologies are available for us?
Yeah. So let us drill down a little bit on the on your question. I said,
Yes,
pick one task that you want to do. Like as a startup, what is the very first thing you want to do? You get a bunch of ideas. Let's say you want to validate these ideas.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
And validation actually means that is anybody else has implemented this idea?
right,
Is there a product that already exists? Or is there a market that exists which comes a little bit later, but that's not a knowledge that a startup normally have. All they start learning all these things about total available market, this, that, and all a little bit later, because first they encounter with some funding agency like a
that's the
they'll
only
say,
time they actually do that.
they'll say how big is the market and how are you going to reach the customers and all these kinds of things. And so that knowledge, that even they talk about unknown unknowns, right? So these are unknown unknowns when you're starting out, right? So so let me ask you a question, like when you help a startup and pick some example startup, say somebody who's building a, product for the education market, or
Right.
a game for children to learn, anything, pick one and tell me, how do you, I mean, let's say that you've not used any tools, or about a few tools. Now, what do you
Right.
use and how do you go about it?
Well, the first thing is our very own Google. But before that, Dora, if I was that CEO, I would write down all my hypotheses, write down my questions in terms of what I want to find out, and go ahead and use Google search to find out if there are answers, but go beyond the first page. Because the joke goes that which is the best place to hide a dead body, the second page of Google search. So,
That's right.
so
And
I
also a
would,
lot of people are trying to climb into that first page, however you define the first page as, and there are a lot of interesting things about it. So let's
right.
talk about it. So Google is free.
Yes.
So I'll talk about a couple of techniques that actually is something even more free than just a search.
Right.
What is your default result, number of result settings in Google? Do you know that there is one thing called
Oh,
not the
I've never used that. Dore.
super?
That's a
Okay.
learning for me.
Okay. So I normally go set it to 100.
Okay.
Okay. And the reason is that if you look at the top few, the first few you get are ads. Okay.
Right.
The second thing that happens is, I don't know whether this happened to you ever, is that when I go search for something, I find more references to that site than that site itself. Right.
I find that very, very common nowadays.
Yeah, I find these directories, like for example, let's say I want to order something from Grand Sweets. I go and type Grand Sweets Chennai, and then I'll find all the guys who refer to, like, I'll get Swiggy first, saying, we supply from Grand Sweets. Then I'll get maybe Uber Eats or whatever, and I'll get a lot of this other stuff. And then before I even the original guy who was in the main search term appears, right? That'll be maybe fifth, sixth, seventh down the line. So I always set it to 100 so that I get that. Second thing is that I look at that number. That number is very scary. If it says 5,730,000 blah, I said, what am I going to do with all those results? And then if you've ever done these things and you click on this and you happily consuming that, some nice blog post about, all that stuff, and suddenly you look at the date and notice it was from 1997 or 2003. So Google has another feature that if you go to the tools and you click on it, it says, gives you a timeline and said, I want my searches to be done only in the last, 1 year or
Right.
last 1 month, or you can even specify a date range. The last 3 months, has anybody mentioned a company, for example? So let us go back to a product. Right.
Right.
So these are couple, and if you just explore the advanced search, you'll find lots of interesting ones. And that is an entire session on how to do Google
Right.
search. The third thing we found out is Google gives you what is called a custom search engine, which will give you the first 100 results. So we wrote ourselves this little tool that takes a search, sends it to Google, gets back the results, and then creates a CSV file of all the first 100 results. And then later you can consume it, you can analyze it, and
Right.
and then Google searches most of the time, even if you say I'm feeling lucky or whatever, is never what you think it will be. Okay. So that means you need to fine tune the search. And to fine tune, sometimes they have these nice things like snippets and all that. You need to start fine tuning the search, and then you have to keep expanding the search term. So when you start doing these kinds of things, then ultimately you want to take these results. Right now, I keep clicking on every link. It opens a tab, and then I go and look at the tabs and all that sort of stuff. There are, you can copy paste. That is the lowest technology. You can just copy paste it into Excel or whatever, or into some page. There is another tool that will, given the search results, you can say extract all the links and store it in a file. It's very, very simple. And so there is this whole class of tools. There are things called robotic process automation tools. Some of them are priced and some of them are free that you can get, which let you take these and then look at it and then, hey, where did the search wrong? Sometimes the same word has multiple meanings. Like a bank will bring a river bank and a financial bank. So ambiguity. How do you disambiguate this kind of? The other thing is that if you just type a term with multiple words in it, the term in the beginning, if I say cloud publishing tools, I'll get a lot about cloud and very little about publishing tools. So you can do, to some extent, you can mitigate this by saying cloud plus publishing plus tools kind of thing, which is again a search thing. But the more important stuff is that you can look at keywords in your space. So the first thing you do is when you think about a product, say, how do I describe my product? Can I describe my product in like 5 keywords? So the way you do it is, if I am my user, how would the user find my product? And what search terms are they likely to type? And we'll come to how to even find the search terms, which is an entirely different topic. But what search terms would you type? And I would normally, being a techie, I'll always, look at my technology terms. But users may not be using that kind of stuff, right? So what are the terms? And then go and type those terms the way you think about the product. And that's why I think the first step you do, even before you go to Google search, you mentioned a very important thing, that write down a list of hypotheses. I won't even go to that point. I'll simply say, take your product or a service and do a pitch, which is like a 1 paragraph. Like write, my product is for this year. The standard pitch templates. My product serves this user. My product is for this purpose, and it has got this unique feature. Whatever you want to do, you write a small blurb or a tagline that you may want to put in the product, and then write 1 paragraph description, and then you look at, when you go through the description, eliminate all the common English words and you get a bunch of keywords. They are the ones to start with. Okay.
Lovely.
And then some of them may be words, some of them may be phrases. That's why you will have problems if you come up with a problem with a product name like Achillea or something like that, or like Saraswati, because I'm in education marketplace. You're going to get very crazy results when you go to Google and search for something like that. You'll get pictures of Saraswati and all that, depending on where you are. So the product name, you can't really use your product name as a Googleable thing, and sometimes we want to have a very clear. But there are product names like Google, Delicious, Flickr. None of them, they didn't mean anything at that point. Just because they could get the .com, they were using it. So you take this description, and then from this description, generate your own list of keywords and keep trying these keywords, and then figure out which ones get you closest to the results that you're expecting. That's one thing. Second thing is the product. And if you think it's another startup, so either it's an established product that somebody like Microsoft or Google or Facebook or one of the biggies are shipping, or a small subset of their big offering, like a CRM, Salesforce is the first name that comes to your mind. But there are some 100 CRM systems that are not Salesforce, right? So if they're a well-known term, then you'll see a lot of big competitors. But if it's a less used terms like CRM for architects or CRM for builders, so when you qualify it with the type of user, it will start narrowing down the search. So there are a couple of keyword tools which are available as plugins. If you're using Chrome, I can just go to my Chrome and I can put an extension. They're also available in Firefox and others. So you put an extension, what you do is when you type a keyword and you get the search results, they will also give you all the alternate keywords that people use for this. So you can grab those keywords also. So essentially you end up with saying, okay, these 10 keywords describe my product. And the way you validate it, suppose it's a product, it's not yet a product, it's like a very tiny thing that is something, let's say it's a marketing tool for finding influencers. I'll go to well-known watering holes like Product Hunt. And then look for it in Product Hunt. And Product Hunt is more, the generally people, these are, for sure that these are people who do not have a lot of marketing money, even though that is not true anymore, because a lot of people are using it as an experimental way of, doing it. You can go and describe the product and see whether you can find the products, and then go click on the product and see whether they are like what you think you are. There is one called beta list. Even though it's called beta list, it's supposed to be, in fact, that's how we got like 300 users in one search about 20 years ago, right? And so you go to beta list and you just type about a product, and we do something called a web monitoring tool. But even I think web monitoring tool is a very, very specific search, but it's not. What are you monitoring web for? Is it for security? Is it for seeing whether somebody trashed it? And is it for competitive analysis? There are like 10 different uses. So I start expanding my search terms by seeing the results in, analysis of the results. So
beautiful.
So that's basically how you get started.
Yeah. Dorai, whole lot of learning for me as well in terms of taking it back home. One question I will leave, which we will cover in the following discussion, is about DuckDuckGo as a competitor for Google search. But listeners and viewers, this is the first opening batting partnership between Dorai and myself. If you have any questions specific to technology, marketing, or the marriage between the two, please feel free to reach out to both of us, Dorai Thodla and Pravin Shekar. And that brings us to the end of the first episode in terms of our conversations. You can call it the Martech conversations.
Sounds good. All right.
Love.